Hello, everybody. It's Friday. That means it's time for another topic of the week. First off, normal preamble. Last week's topic about change in games. Good thoughts, good responses, and it's one of those things that's always really interesting to discuss because, as I mentioned, I really believe change is a critical element to the long term health of any game, and yet we all hate it. We hate it when things are too static. We hate it when things don't change. So things have to change just the right amount for enough of us not to hate it enough and to be excited enough about what's happening. That's a real tough tightrope to walk as a game designer, and certainly I'm sympathetic to anybody who's designing games or making games. As somebody who's done it myself for a while, I know it can be a challenge. But this week's topic. So, with this week's topic, I wanted to turn to something that I'm surprised I hadn't brought up before, but it's something that is kind of a hidden element within Wargames that maybe isn't expressed in the same way in a lot of other games. So, and that is synergy, if you saw the title of this video. And other than, the joke word of synergy and the fact that we all probably have to endure it on a daily basis in various like corporate strategy meetings, synergy in games is a really interesting thing. So let me start out first with a little quick game design lesson. So the difference between linear and modular design. I'll be quick about this. This is best exemplified by using magic cards. So hopefully you have some kind of familiarity with magic. If not, hopefully you can grab onto what I'm saying. Okay, linear design. When I'm making linear game design elements, game elements, a linear game element behooves more of the same type of element get added to the whatever I'm building. So in Magic, tribal cards. So if I have a card that gives like +1/+1 to all elves, okay, that's a linear card because by reading that card, I think I need to get more elves and find more things that do more things with elves. Okay, so linear design relies on strong, obvious synergy, direct synergy. Okay, I'm going to have this critical mass of elves. They're all going to be giving each other bonuses, and I'm going to take a bunch of piddly elves and make them rule the world and become these powerful monsters. Okay. Modular design is when everything can just work independently and is good in a vacuum. Lightning Bolt is an example of modular design. Like, Lightning Bolt is a fairly standard card. It was 1 red, 3 damage. It's a great spell. Like, you can put it in somebody's dome to kill your enemy player if they're at low life. You can remove a problem creature. You can do all sorts of things with Lightning Bolt that are shenanigans. But it doesn't necessarily demand any other cards. You could have a deck where perhaps your only direct damage is Lightning Bolt, and that would be perfectly viable. So, linear versus modular, right? The reason I gave that lesson is to talk about how important synergy is to you in the armies you build in Wargames. So let's bring this back around to Wargames. I've noticed that some people treat this very differently when they think about building their armies, and it's interesting to me. And whatever game you happen to be playing right now, the reality is different armies have different levels of sort of synergy, and this varies game to game. But let's go back to an older reference in Warhammer. If we think about old sort of, the Empire, right? The Empire is classically a synergistic army. Skaven probably fall into the same thing, where the various components help each other out. There's a lot of different bonuses getting thrown around by different troops. Certainly this is still true in AOS, where the army has to work very much together. They have to have a certain synergy. One commander helps a unit, and that unit buffs something else, and so on and so forth, and everybody's got to be in the bubble, or whatever it happens to be, right? And only when all of those components come together does the army actually work. You can't just sort of go along and harvest like a best of the best, not paying any attention to how they work together and have the army function properly, for the most part. So let's go to the other extreme example, which classically was, Warriors of Chaos. And I think this is still true even in Ninth Age with Warriors of the Dark Gods. And I think it's actually still very true in a lot of AOS sort of chaos and slaves of darkness type of things. In that, although there's perhaps more synergy, chaos has traditionally been this force of elite troops that often can march around on their own. They themselves are a potent threat, independent of anybody else, and if met one-on-one with most other things in the game, they will win. You know, their enemies win through combined arms or synergy or something like that. So, that's the topic of the week. And let me see if I can break this down to actual questions. Because I've noticed that I don't tend to favor big synergistic combo strategies. I think that's the lack of Johnny in me. I like just having a lot of big independent monsters that don't really care about each other. That's what sort of attracted me to various chaos elements in the previous edition. And that's still often how I end up playing my armies. I take what I like. If I think the model's cool, if I think the rules for that thing are cool, I don't worry too much about how everything works together. I mean, I try to avoid non-bows, right? Which is a non-combo. Things that literally are just flatline against each other or worse, hurt each other. But I don't think it's a major component. Whereas I think a lot of current games really do pay off and tend to favor linear design, right? Where by taking one thing, there's sort of an obvious next thing to take. There's an obvious synergy. Or at the very least, if you dig, you can find the synergy. Maybe it's not right there on the surface, but maybe it's the next layer down. So how important is synergy in the forces you choose? Do you like a sort of combined arms, everybody's got to pitch in together force where when the whole sort of symphony is playing in harmony, that's victory for you? Or do you like it more where you can have independent things walking around and, you don't really care about it? Do you like searching for those synergistic combos, hunting up those weird combinations that give, suddenly take perhaps what's normally a garbage thing? This was a classic trick in Magic. Almost every set would have a card that was just obvious garbage, like it was pure garbage if taken alone. It you lose the game, right? Like just that's what it would do if you played it. But yet the combo player would find some way to dig and cast this thing and then this thing and activate this thing, and then they could make it so the opponent lost the game. Haha, right? Or whatever. Do you like finding those lesser powered things and through synergy building them up into something more dangerous, more potent, more powerful, that kind of thing? Okay? So there you go. How important is synergy to you in your forces? How much do you like it in the game? How much does it matter when you choose your individual army list? Look forward to your responses. As always, comment down below if you just want to discuss it, or feel free to make a response video about how that sort of thinking has guided the armies you've chosen. Because it certainly did me in the early. I played Empire and then Skaven. I loved combined arms originally and weird synergistic stuff. I think over time I've gotten lazy and don't want to build complex lists anymore. So laziness has led me down the road of just like, can I just take a bunch of independently powerful things? I'll go for that. But where are you at? Video responses, as always, will be linked down below, as is last week's video, so you can go there and see all the responses to that. Appreciate it as always, and we'll see you next time.